Hantavirus. Here's what really happened. Today I'm going to walk you through what we actually know, why the CD says the direct risk to most Americans' households is actually extremely low, and why the real impact so many families will feel isn't the virus itself. It's everything that happens next. Now, spoiler alert, this isn't going to be COVID 2.0, and there is zero reason to believe that there will be a lockdown. So let's get into it. The facts, straight from the sources. On May 2nd, 2026, the World Health Organization was notified of a cluster of severe respiratory illnesses on board the cruise ship. I think it was Expedition, but by May 6th, lab testing confirmed it. The Andes hantavirus, the only hantavirus strain known to spread directly from person to person. The CDC immediately issued a health alert network advisory to every clinical lab and public health department in the country. They also deployed a team to meet the ship when it docked in the Canary Islands. As of the latest, the WHO updated on May 8th. There were 8 reported cases, 6 confirmed, 2 suspected. There had been 3 deaths. And the ship was carrying 147 people from 23 different countries. Now, those passengers have now dispersed globally. 18 passengers are back in the United States and under medical monitoring. 1 has already tested positive in Nebraska. Here's the part that matters most. The CDC continues to rate the public risk here in the US as extremely low. And there's a reason for that. This is not COVID 2.0. The data we have right now does not support panic. But ignoring it completely would also be a mistake, because every time a new respiratory pathogen makes headlines, the same predictable second-order effects kind of hit American families. The direct risk of Andes hantavirus reaching your front door is, according to the CDC, extremely low. But downstream disruptions, those are almost always guaranteed. Here's what history shows us every time an outbreak dominates the news cycle. Supply chains tighten overnight. Almost overnight, they completely tighten. Cross-border shipping slows down. Generic medications, the ones we all rely on, are manufactured heavily in India, China, and Europe. Any delay that creates immediate shortages here is a problem. Pharmacies can run dry. We saw it with Tamiflu in 2023, amoxicillin in 2024, and dozens of common antibiotics during COVID. Demand spikes, manufacturing hiccups, and suddenly the shelves are freaking empty. Pharmacy closures can accelerate. Between 2021 and 2024, the U.S. almost lost more than 2,200 retail pharmacies. Every new disruption pushes rural and suburban families even further from the nearest open counter. Something also happens. It's called healthcare bandwidth, and it shrinks. Urgent care, people going to the urgent care overflow. Telehealth waits get time stretched out, and routine prescriptions that used to take an hour now take days. Also, global travel and trade slow down. Even simple precautionary screening at ports ripple throughout the economy. Now, none of this is hypothetical. It happened in 2020. It happened again in 2022. It happens in smaller waves every time a scary respiratory story breaks. The hantavirus story on the Hondias, obviously was the name of the ship, may blow over in a few weeks without becoming a U.S. outbreak. The pattern of disruption will not. That's why smart families prepare for the predictable consequences, not just the virus of the month. Preparedness isn't about guessing which virus comes next. It's about building resilience against the disruptions that allows that to follow. The single most practical thing you can do right now is to make sure your family's basic medical supply does not depend on a just-in-time system that's about to get stressed. Now, I can recommend something like the Jace case, but you need to know that the Jace case, and I'm going to say this out loud, Jace case is not a treatment for the hantavirus. The hantavirus is a viral illness. Antibiotics do not work against viruses. What Jace case protects you against are the everyday bacterial problems that continue and often get harder to treat. When the healthcare system is overwhelmed, certain things, it can help you with different little things: urinary tract infections, skin and soft tissue infections, bacterial respiratory infections, maybe some traveler's diarrhea, and a whole slew of other things. The case is pretty robust. But The next thing you're thinking is, well, what about ivermectin? Well, ivermectin is great, but it's a long-established antiparasitic with additional document and for emergency uses. Again, it is not tested as a hantavirus treatment, but many prepared families like having it on hand before the demand spikes. Now, you're probably thinking about what's next. Here's the bad news. There is no specific treatment, cure, or licensed vaccine available for hantavirus infections. Medical management relies entirely on supportive care and early hospitalization, typically in an intensive care unit, also the ICU, to manage the symptoms and prevent complications. The key aspects of the current treatment are supportive care, where patients receive rest, hydration, close monitoring of respiratory, cardiac, or kidney functions. And this often involves mechanical ventilation, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, also known as ECMO, hemofiltration for those with severe lung or heart involvement. Also, they're going to pump you full of antiviral medications. While not officially licensed for hantavirus, ribavirin is something used off-label, particularly for hemorrhagic fever or renal syndrome. It's also known as HFRS. In its early stages, as it's shown a reduction in mortality rates. Favipiravir has also demonstrated efficiency in animal models and is being processed as a potential therapeutic option. You could also go immunotherapy. In severe cases, particularly hantavirus cardiopulmonary syndrome or HCPS, doctors may use fresh frozen plasma or sera from a recovered individual to provide natural antibodies, which have been associated with the improved survival outcomes. And then there's complication management. Specific treatments are administered for organ failure, such as dialysis for kidney issues, platelet transfusions for and medications to support blood pressure. Now, early recognition and immediate transfer to an intensive care settings are critical, as rapid supportive treatment significantly improves the chances of your survival. Now, before you ask, the early symptoms of hantavirus, or HPS as it's known, typically appear in 1 to 5 weeks after exposure to infected rodent urine droppings or saliva. The initial phase lasting 3 to 6 days and includes flu-like symptoms, fevers, chills, muscle aches, especially in the large muscle groups like the thighs, hips, and back, fatigue, and headaches. Also, there's going to be some gastrointestinal issues, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain. They're all very common. And some other signs are dizziness, joint pain, and sometimes a dry cough. These early symptoms are often mistaken for influenza, the flu, or other viral infections. The condition can rapidly progress to severe respiratory distress as the lungs fill with fluid, leading to the pulmonary phase of the illness. That's right, your heart. Look, no one can predict exactly how this hantavirus situation is going to unfold, but we can predict with high confidence that it's always what always happens next. The temporary shortages, the long wait times, and the stress supplied lines. Build the layer of medical resistance your family actually deserves, because preparedness isn't panic, it's peace of mind, and everyone else is going to be scrambling.